Slide changes. Okay, so fourth of four. Many firsts for me today. I think it's the first time I'm speaking wearing a maroon shirt with checks, because normally you will see me like this. But I was told no coat, very informal, so I agreed to that. This is perhaps the gorgeous I have ever spoken to my house. I live just about walking distance from here. The most heterogeneous crowd that I'm talking to, and I thought I won't know anyone here, but I was surprised that I know lots of people here. And I guess the most instructions that I've ever gotten by the organizer for his speech. And I have almost like 7 pages of WhatsApp or 8 WhatsApp that I have received, including I soon to speak 1 minute more than 25 minutes. So you keep track. At 23 minutes, you tell me that 23 minutes are over, then I'll stop. And when he saw my slides, he got a little worried. So he said, well, it's a Saturday night, mixed crowd, so try and entertain people a little bit. And I don't know how to do that. And fortunately, I'm fourth speaker. The 3 have done that. So I won't try to entertain people. Okay? So what I'm going to try and do in the 25 minutes is pack in about 45 minutes worth of content. And I've chosen to use slides, makes it easier to kind of grasp what I'm saying. And in the first, I'm going to talk about my life story, just briefly. And then about 6 to 7 things that I have kind of learned over the years in what has driven me in my career and what has worked for me. And then talk a little bit about 2 or 3 areas that I've been involved in. And I don't know how much of it I'll cover, but let me start. So starting with my story, life story, very, very similar to Prakash. In fact, we can almost like I can copy it, except for 2 things. Never wrote a book, never will write a book, and could never become an entrepreneur. Even though I'm a Marwari, but somehow that entrepreneurship didn't come in my blood. So life story. I'm sorry? Rajasthani, but not born in Rajasthan. I'm born in a very small town in MP. Went to Hindi medium school. I still remember my first 7 years I lived in that small village called Harpalpur. I still remember do ka do, do dni char, do tiye chhe and all that. Came to Calcutta at the age of 7. That's when I learned my alphabets. English was always a problem for me, Hindi medium school. The first time I wrote a paper in English was when I did the IIT entrance exam and barely managed to get in. Barely managed to get in. I think I got the last seat in mechanical engineering in IIT Kanpur. But I was told that if English was not counted for ranking, I would have been in top 50. And as a result of that, after 2 or 3 years, they dropped counting English for ranking. So that was a contribution that perhaps I made. I remember my ragging time. I was asked, when did I come to the campus? And just like you said that think in Hindi, translate to English, I said, I came here tomorrow. And you can imagine the choicest language that was used by the seniors to tell me that I have no business being in IIT. Anyways, as luck would have it, things worked out well for me in IIT. Graduated in time. My dream job at that time was either L&T. They didn't even call me for an interview. or telco, that is Tata Research at that time, telco, Tata Motors. And they did call me for an interview, and after the interview was over, they said, we will not hire you. I said, why not? He said, because you're top in the class. So I said, so what's wrong with that? They said, because you're going to go to USA. And therefore, we don't want to waste our time to try and hire you and all that. And he was right. I did go to USA, went to Cornell, got my PhD from there, then got what was perhaps a dream job in US at that time, General Motors. Worked there for 14 years and came back. Now, even after I joined General Motors, having done my PhD in USA, I still had difficulty in English. And my bosses realized that. They actually gave me a tutor for 14 weeks to teach me how to speak in English at that time. And that was very useful. And that was very useful for me. After finishing, I guess just like most Indians used to do at that time, after I got my PhD, got a job, I came back. My parents had lined up a bunch of girls for me to see in a 1-week period. Did that. My wife was number 10 out of the girls that I saw. Quickly got married and went back. Had a honeymoon also in about two or 3 days. Went back because my visa was expiring, and so on. And then the American dream that one has: go there, get your PhD, get married, get a house, have kids, have a backyard. All that was sort of working fine. And then suddenly, I remember that ghazal from Naam, Chitti Aayi Hai, right? Now you can imagine somebody who's living in USA, and if you hear that, I saw that movie on a Saturday, and as luck would have it, on Sunday, I opened India Abroad, which was a newspaper published from New York. And there's an advertisement calling Indians home from ICER. And I looked at my wife. I said, Stelvi. She looked at me. Let's do it. And that's it. So, but it took me 4 years after that to actually gather courage to leave USA and come back to India, or 4 years to get a meaningful job with Mahindra. I remember one auto company I interviewed. I won't name the company. So the person said, Goenka ji, आपको hire तो हम कर लेंगे, लेकिन आप करोगे क्या यहाँ पर? The next one where the promoter was interviewing me, Goenka ji, you have lived in USA for 18 years. I said, yeah. You must have made a lot of money. So why do you need to work? So I said, no, it doesn't work like that. Just because you lived in 18 years doesn't mean that you made a lot of money. Anyways, so finally I got a desired job in Mahindra in '93. And to some extent, luck played a very big role. I think you had talked about hard work, you talked about the sort of the plan. But I think in many cases, luck also plays a very important role in what happens. And as luck would have it, the day I came for interview to Mahindra was a Mumbai Bandh, and because of Babri Masjid. And only person who could get to the office was Anand Mahindra. So he interviewed me. And if you are interviewed by Anand Mahindra, there is no way you can say no, because the charisma that he has. And basically what he told me was that, look, Pawan, India has opened up. We have all the auto companies that are going to be coming to India. I, as Mahindra, have 3 choices, or 2 choices. Either I become a licensee of a big company, or I have my own products on which to build the company. And I don't want the first one, I want the second one. And if you want to join that dream, please come and join us. And when somebody says like that to an auto engineer, there cannot be a better offer than that. And I am generally considered to be a left-brain person. Everything is Excel sheet and calculate and this and that. There was one decision I made with the right brain, and I said, I'm in. Not knowing where I will be working, not knowing who my boss would be, not knowing what my career growth will be. And in fact, my wife and I often look back and say, I left a job at that time in CTC terms about $120,000 way back in '93 to a job which paid me 6 lakh rupees a year. And we think we must have made some conversion mistake. There's no way we could have expected a job paying me 6 lakh from $120,000. But that was the best decision that we made, even if it was a conversion mistake. And I think to some extent timing is very important. If I had come back to India 3 years too early, I would have probably gone back because there's not much that could be done in auto industry at that time. And if I had waited another 3-4 years, probably would not have come back because my kids would be teenagers and it would be very unfair to them and they probably would have disagreed. But Suresh had asked me to kind of say what drove us to do that. I talked about the TI, and that's a fact. I'm not just making it up. That is a fact. And it kind of, I remember the final decision. We were driving from New York towards Detroit, and on the turnpike, I-80, I think it's called, I-80. And I told my wife that, okay, if we go straight, we go to Chicago, and we buy the 220-volt appliances, then there's no turning back. Then we have to go to India if we bought the 220-volt appliances. Or we go right to Detroit, and then we forgot all about going back to India. So my wife thought, straight. And that was it. No turning point from there. Okay. So coming to India, I think the dream that Anand talked about of building a R&D in an Indian automotive company, what he offered me was a blank check, not as a paycheck, blank check to develop R&D. And no interference from anyone. You do what you want to do. Okay? And it really was gratifying to see that from 93, when I came in, we had 50 people in R&D at that time. 2002, we launched Scorpio, and in 9 years, and that changed the whole sort of future of Mahindra, and not just of Mahindra, I believe to some extent Indian automotive industry also. Because that was the first totally Indian designed car, first car that Mahindra could even dream of selling at 6 lakh. I mean, to us, to sell a car at 6 lakh was unheard of. And we were not making money at 6 lakh. We made money much later. Scorpio turned out to be very profitable, but when we launched it, it was not making money. And to do it with an average age of engineers of 27, most of them fresh out of college, having never done any serious design work. Even I had not done any serious design work. I came from R&D, pure R&D, right? So that really was a very gratifying thing for me and for Mahindra. And I think what it did to some extent was not just about launching a car, but about giving confidence to people in Mahindra and to the Indian automotive industry engineers that India can compete with the best in the world. Right? And if you look at the auto industry today, we are the third largest auto industry, and I have some slides if I get to it to kind of talk about the journey. But what has happened is, in spite of every player being in India, every automotive player is in India, is still, if you include Maruti, 70% market share is with Indian companies, if you include Maruti, if you don't include 25%, in the passenger vehicle. In the three-wheeler, 80% Indian players. In commercial vehicle, 90% Indian players. In two-wheeler, 67% Indian players. So you can imagine that in spite of everybody being in India, Indian players have not lost out. And if you go back to Anand tells me that when he had one of the big four do a strategy project for Mahindra before I joined the company, the outcome of the strategy project was get out of auto business. You will not survive. Just say in tractor, you will do well. And if he had listened to that consultant, not just Mahindra, perhaps the growth of auto industry wouldn't have come to that stage. So I think these are the little things that change not just the course of your own life, course of the company, but the course of a whole industry. Now, I'm going to skip the slides because I have talked too much without the slides, but you can just see it. These are kind of my learning that I want to talk about, but perhaps not very appropriate well, let me spend a minute or so. See, I have always believed, and I think it was kind of talked about by other speakers also, that you have to have a superordinate goal. if you're going to do well, if you're going to lead a company, lead a nation, you have to think way beyond yourself, way beyond what's in it for me. You have to have a subordinate goal to see what is the legacy that I want to leave behind. When I am gone, what do I want to be known for? If I'm writing a book or somebody writing a book, let's write the last chapter of the book. That's what I'm working towards, right? So that's having a superordinate goal, dream big, have a purpose. Taking big bets, and I'm going to give you some examples of how big bets almost always are must, and other speakers have also talked about it, how big bets really make a difference. Without that, you will only make incremental benefits, and big bets also mean that they will not all work out. Otherwise, it's not a big bet. Some of them will fail. And a good example is our friend Elon Musk, the kind of big bets that he has taken in 3 different areas. Really, most people wouldn't have thought about, and he has more or less succeeded in each one of them. Never become complacent, no matter how well you do. Paranoia, that means what can go wrong with what I'm doing, is always something that will help you to ensure that you cover all the bases. Never lose quest for learning, no matter how old you are or how much you know. And I like the quote from Henry Ford, anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. Believe in people, and no one can do it alone. No one can do it alone. Whether you are a small scale, large scale, corporate, nation, whatever, you have to believe in people, and just not believe in people, but also help people rise. Many of you have seen that symbol with Mahindra, Rise, right? That's what Rise is all about. You have to help people rise, and I believe that many people in this room would have had somebody in their life who have helped them to rise. Right? And now it's your turn to help people rise. And that doesn't mean that you compromise with anything, but just think about, I'm doing this, but in the process, can I help someone rise? And it'll make a huge difference. Now let me just very quickly go through automotive sector, and I've talked a little bit about it in the preamble. This was in 1990s. You remember Padmini and Ambassador, and if you had it, you are envy of your neighbor, right? The superordinate goal at that time, what built the automotive industry to some extent, was Sanjay Gandhi's goal, when he talked about producing the people's car. And about the same time, though it's not sort of talked about too much, perhaps the big guys, the Rahul Bajaj, the Kesab Mahindra, the Ratan Tata, all of these people sitting in a room somewhere, set a goal. Indian auto industry will become truly global. Now think in 92, 93, to think about the auto industry becoming truly global, responsible industry, and will be an important pillar of economic growth. And that's what the industry has delivered. Now at that time in 93, that would have been something crazy to think about. Just see what has happened. 94, GDP contribution 2.7, 17, 7.1, employment 10 million at that time, 24 million now, revenue 4.2 to 106, and rank, global rank, from 21st to 6th. Just in 13 years, 24th to 6th. Now, I'm stopping at 17, I'll add 23 now. So if you look at 17 to 23, these have been difficult years for the auto industry. In fact, auto industry slowed down. It started even before COVID, and then COVID hit. But still some growth, but keeping pace with GDP more or less. But what has happened now is rank is 3rd. Just behind China, USA, and then India. Now just think who would have ever thought that India will be the 3rd largest automotive market in the world. And as I told you earlier, that a lot of it is really the Indian players. This was 2002 Scorpio, 2022 Scorpio. Now big bets, I just want to spend a minute on that, and just taking it in Mahindra context. Scorpio was the biggest bet that any company could have taken. Investment was 600 crore, though that was perhaps about 1/4 of what a multinational would have spent, but 600 crore was 3 years profit for Mahindra. 3 years profit. So that's a big bet. And if Scorpio had failed, company would have survived, for sure, right? So that's a big bet that was taken at that time, but Anand Mahindra's view was, it's not a big bet. it's either this, or we might as well fold shop and go home and do something else, right? And therefore, to him, this was the only way. The Chakan plant that we set up in 2009, 2010, this is over 700 acres. This was a big bet. This is the time of slowdown, 2009. We spent investing 5,000 crore in that plant when there was a biggest slowdown that we had seen for a long, long time. And today, that plant is full. 700 acres is full. There's not an inch left. Right? R&D center. The whole thing is best in technology, Mahindra Research Valley in Chennai. From 50 people, we have now gone to 3,000 people in Mahindra. Okay? Invested about 700 crore in setting up this R&D, just the R&D center over 70 acres. Electric vehicle, a big bet, but there's a but here. I talked about courage of conviction in one of my slides. I guess we didn't have enough courage of conviction to invest big in electric vehicle, and we kind of pulled back, right? Because we started very early in 2010, nobody was talking electric vehicles. For a long time, nothing much happened. So we said, well, let's not invest too much more money, and we slowed down. Now, again, investing more, and hopefully we'll catch up. And the proudest moment for me, and I have to show you this slide, sorry. The proudest moment for me in my career was a statement that Mr. Ratan Tata made in his AGM in 2012, and he actually made this statement. Now, coming from Ratan Tata in his AGM, praising Mahindra and saying, so that's lessons learned. I'm okay. In terms of auto industry, the first one is leadership and entrepreneurship. These are leadership of the names I mentioned. And what is important here is that these leaders were not thinking just about their company. They were thinking about the industry. They were thinking about how to make the industry big, how to make the industry responsible, how to make the industry add economic value to the country. A lot of entrepreneurship in our supplier base. And some of you, I think 2 or 3 of you are suppliers to auto industry. A lot of entrepreneurship. I mean, if you look at the suppliers in 2000 we were doing Scorpio. There are hardly any suppliers who could do any meaningful thing. And today, India has one of the strongest supplier base anywhere. Superordinate gold, I talked about. Taking big bets, I gave you some Mahindra examples, but every company has those examples. The relationship between MSMEs, and the suppliers, and the OEMs, the large companies, has been a backbone of this industry, because in auto industry, 70% of what goes in the car, or 70% of what you are paying for the car is going to a supplier. Only 30% is coming to the OEM. That includes all the profit, marketing, manufacturing, everything. Focus on quality, and technology. That's a big enabler, because if you look at the companies that didn't survive, and those 2 cars that I have shown you are the 2 companies that didn't survive because they didn't invest in technology, right? And the companies who did well were the companies that really pulled out all stops to invest in technology. And agility, to move fast. You talked about BS4 coming in. That was a big problem for the industry at that time, but the industry moved very fast. After that, BS6 and so on and so forth. So a lot of things that have happened. Now, I'll just take a couple of minutes on the second part. Now, I'm leaving automotive industry behind. This Atmanirbhar Bharat in manufacturing. The reason I'm bringing it up is that there are a lot of entrepreneurs here, a lot of people who are involved in manufacturing in some way. This is a task that was given to me by Mr. Piyush Goyal just at the beginning of COVID to chair a committee called Scale Committee. And the reason I'm showing this is that the opportunities that India has in manufacturing is mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling. You have all heard about China +1, right? The +1, if we can make India become the +1, you look at the industry that I have put down here. On the left number is what is the global trade. The right number is what India is exporting. Auto component, 1.3 trillion. India's share is 19 billion, 1.3%. Furniture, 300 billion. India's share is 3.5 billion, 1%. Chemicals, 4.7 trillion. India's share is 24 billion. That's how much? Less than 1%, right? So if we were to put our mind to it, and this is the right time because government of India is absolutely focused on how to grow manufacturing. If all of you in this room who are in manufacturing think big and take big bets, lot can happen. But of course, it will require to have that kind of a courage, conviction that yes, you can do it. And finally, I want to talk a couple minutes on the space sector because that's my current job. You would have seen Chairman of Indian Space and wondered what that means. So let me first tell you a story. I got a call on a Friday, sometime in September 21, not a call, an email from a joint secretary in Department of Space, saying that please send us your resume, PMO wants it. Okay, I mean PMO wants it, I send my resume at 10:30. Next day, 12 o'clock, I get a call saying that PM has approved your nomination to be chairman of InSpace. I said, thank you very much. No, the story doesn't get over. So thank you very much. Can I go ahead and say yes, that you've accepted? I said, no, give me some time. So I put the phone down, I went to Google to find out what InSpace was. I had never heard of InSpace. I didn't know what it was. So then it told me what InSpace was, and then after, the rest of it doesn't matter, but that's how it started. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is when it comes to technology and leadership in technology, space is one of the areas where India has done extremely well. Okay? Many of you, obviously it was one man's vision that Rocket Boys had made it very popular. More people who didn't know about space know a lot about space now. But one man's vision really created a whole sector. And support that one man got from then Prime Minister, Mr. Nehru, played an extremely big role. I don't know if that would have happened today. I'm not making political statement. I'm just saying that they're the kind of big bets that even the politicians took at that time to say, I'm going to support something. And for India to think that I'm going to invest money in space at the time when we were importing sort of discarded wheat from America called under PL 480 program, for a PM to think that I'm going to invest in space is something that was a superordinate goal, right? So that's the important thing here. And when you look at what has happened, and this was the amazing thing for me, what I'm learning in this job now is two things. One is about space, and second is also how the government functions, because I'm an actual employee of the government. So it's not an advisory role or anything like that. I get paid a paycheck by the government. Don't ask me how big the paycheck is, but a paycheck by the government. So the thing that have happened over the last 60 years in the space sector, the kind of infrastructure that has been created, the kind of R&D that is being done, the kind of people that are hired, I can say that Mahindra would have felt very lucky if we had the quality of people that ISRO has. It's unbelievable. So this is a photograph that left one that every Indian has seen. Okay, sort of a part of the rocket being carried on a bicycle, and on the right you see where we are. And this is a sector which is literally a dream of a billion people, right? Chandrayaan will be launched, Chandrayaan 3 on 13th of July. I'm sure many of you will watch this on TV. It will land on 23rd of August. Again, you'll be watching on TV, I'm sure. And if you want to go and watch, you can go and watch also. But it's one of the very few sectors, technology-led sector, where India will be at the head table in a global forum. And these guys have done an excellent job. Right? So again, I just the reason I'm again saying or talking about space is that India can play a technology game if we do everything right. Sometimes we believe that technology is not something that we can invest in, but we have to put our mind to it. The government, the private sector has to work together to make it happen, and then we can definitely play that game. So I'm going to stop here with a simple message that in life, you can achieve almost anything. You have to have the right mentorship, and the mentorship, of course, starts from your parents, goes on to your school teachers and so on. And you have to have people who help you rise, and nobody can really succeed without having somebody who has helped you rise. Like if I take example of my boss in GM, who recognized that English was a weakness and put a 14-week tutor to me. That helped me. Maybe without that, I wouldn't be here today talking to you, right? So those are the kind of things that happen and you cannot always be making decisions using spreadsheet. Sometimes you have to let your heart decide and not your head. And the decision, the biggest decision of my life that I made, my wife and I made, of moving to India. By the way, she was more responsible for it than I was. So the biggest decision that we made was not a decision that would have been supported by any spreadsheet. It was a foolish decision. In fact, many people in Mahindra thought that I got fired by GM, deported by immigration department, and that's the reason I've come back to India. Then I had to show them a letter from GM. They said, don't resign, go on a leave of absence, and I'm on a leave of absence here right now. Okay, so enough of it. I think 4 of us have covered more or less similar things. Some of us have come from very, very modest background and have been really, and none of that becomes a constraint if you are in the right place, the right time, and do the right thing, and there's no substitute for hard work. Thank you.